This is a dark day for our state. It's a tragic day for our nation. And I want to be very clear that this is a political assassination.
And just in the last few minutes, we want to show you these images. Law enforcement releasing these still images of the person they believe is a person of interest. You can see this person is wearing a ball cap. It appears that they're wearing sunglasses and they have some sort of shirt, possibly with an American flag symbol on it, even with a pretty clear image of that shooter's face. Authorities still not saying if they have named this person. Take a good look. This is somebody that they are looking for.
And you know what? Utah has a firing squad, has the death penalty. And I hope we make an example out of this son of a bitch, because there's a reckoning coming. There's a reckoning. All right.
Hey, hello, and welcome to Lo-Fi Disciple. Tough subject to talk about today. Charlie Kirk was shot, assassinated, murdered yesterday while giving a speech, while doing his normal campaign, or his, what would you say, his normal visit to college campuses to discuss with the college kids common sense issues, kind of bring them back to basic understanding of values, common sense, and some of the things that we consider traditions here in America, some of the things that have kept us cohesive and gelled, as opposed to modern critical race theory that wants to divide us and just take down the nation. So Charlie Kirk has been doing that for several years, and yesterday he was shot by what looks to be a professional sniper. We're going to talk about that. There's a lot of different opinions, but we'll talk about both sides of it. And we're not going to show you the actual moment of his death. It's pretty graphic. I would highly encourage you to scroll away if you do come across that on any kind of social media. It's really graphic. It's not something the average person is meant to see. And my heart just breaks for his family. And he was a good Christian man who deserved an honorable end, but that's not what we're promised. Scripture tells us that those who did not deserve this world were horrifically killed for their faith in Hebrews chapter 11. So when you see someone that's going out and promoting God's ideas, God's ways of life, God's principles for life, and receiving backlash, hatred, and now martyrdom for it, then it just makes the Bible that much more relevant. It's that much more relevant for our culture, for this day. It's a timeless wisdom. It is. We're still in Bible times. But I want to kind of go over a few things and talk about this. I want to welcome everyone to the live chat. It's been a tough day. My wife and I we didn't know the guy. We've never met him. We never talked to him. We've just watched a couple of his videos here and there. But he always had good fruits of the Spirit. And that's what we were always impressed by. Especially, as you guys know, many of you may know me. I've done debates. I've interviewed lots of people. And sometimes it gets contentious because they don't like what I'm saying. They don't like the challenging questions that I'm asking from their previously held ideas. And so maintaining the fruits of the Spirit can be difficult in conversations where someone is being antagonistic towards you. They may start marking you. They may start trying to belittle or marginalize you because of your differences of opinions. And make no mistake about it. You guys have seen me talking theology with people, but technically all life is theology. So when we saw in the past Charlie Kirk go out to these college campuses and speak with children, and I say children because I'm 45, and so when I look at college kids, I'm sorry, I feel like they're children. I remember myself when I was in college. I had nothing figured out. I had no clue what was going on about life. I didn't understand any type of wisdom. I was a child, and that's the malleable. I was extremely impressionable, and that's what is understood about this age group of college kids. They're extremely impressionable, and they're being impressed upon them an ideology of communism. I know that that's not the most popular word that people use, but it is communism. It's just been relabeled, if you will, as critical race theory. But the whole fundamental ideology is to divide and conquer. The idea is to create perpetual victimhood and perpetual revolution. There's never a grievance that can be atoned for, forgiven, reconciled. Peace can never be made. And this is the type of ideology that's being pushed into the minds of young kids. So Charlie Kirk goes out to try to reason with them and bring them back to a logical understanding of what's right and what's wrong, which is doing the Father's work. Blessed are those who are peacemakers, so they will be called sons of the kingdom. And that he was a man that was going out to do that type of work. And I received a lot of flack for it. And then as of yesterday, in the end, it took his life. Now, whether it's a government-led assassination attempt, or whether it's a something like a militant group like an Antifa, or whether it's a deranged, mentally unstable person who had some sort of training, either way, it took his life. Now, as we're going to go over some of this information, I lean more towards a professional hit because of some of the factors involved that we'll talk about. But make no mistake that we're in biblical times where it's a fight between good and evil. We battle not flesh and blood. Although the flesh can get hurt from time to time, this is not the forces that are motivating this type of evil that we saw yesterday. These are malevolent forces, unclean spirits infecting like a cancer, like a parasite, in the reasoning faculties and the minds of anyone that would do something to a righteous man who literally has never advocated for violence, nor was he ever violent with anyone. Yet they decided violence was the answer because they didn't want to talk to him. So I heard someone yesterday talking about this, and they said, "This is when you know. This is how we know who they are for real. That we've reached a point where they're done engaging in political discourse. Basically, they can't be talked to. So this is when you know you're dealing with crazy. You're dealing with someone that cannot be talked to. They refuse to talk. They want to kill. This is where a biblical response is required. What does that mean for the average person in our culture? I hope it doesn't mean much. I hope for the average person, I hope it does not mean having to defend your family or having to go and root out some sort of weird stronghold in your town. I hope that we have adequate law enforcement people that are trained that'll be able to, between the various agencies and sheriffs and local law enforcement, that they'd be able to go in and root out any type of groups that are now should be labeled directly as terrorists. This is like anyone that is enacting violence based on political means. This is the direct definition of terrorism. Okay. And so anyone behind something like this, anyone that pushes the rhetoric that is, that this was justified or that Charlie Kirk deserved it, they're aligning themselves with terrorist rhetoric, terrorist political ideology, and terrorist actions. So I know the word terrorist has been, since 9/11, the word terrorism has been, thrown around a whole lot, but this is by basic definition the concept of terrorism, specifically over political ideology. And I just pray that we're able to get a handle on this kind of stuff, and that there's peace in this country before it escalates even further to where, you get the men who I just pray that the average person doesn't decide to take vigilante justice. There's already a lot of men calling for it. They know who's perpetuating this ideology. They know who is instigating and confusing the minds of it. And they are armed, trained themselves, and ready. They've been ready for a long time. And I just pray that peace can prevail, and that the I should say, the legal routes, if I could put it like that, the legal means of law enforcement could be imposed in these situations, because essentially, what we're seeing is a coalescing of the last 10 years of ideologies. We thought that it was just a bunch of people dyeing their hair and being silly. Bunch of people advocating for pronouns, a bunch of people advocating for injustices that they felt, microaggressions. But what they were really being taught was just a new colorful form of communism. And communism is a revolutionary ideology. It wants to overthrow with death. It's just a power play. It acts as if it's supporting the supposed oppressed, but all it is those who want to rule hide within the suppressed until they have a chance for revolution. They then take over and discard the patsies they use to help them with the revolution. This has always been the way. This is communism through and through. And I just pray that we can get a handle on this before it turns into groups of men going through these college campuses and rounding up these professors, groups of men going through these medical institutions and rounding up these people that are administering hormone blockers, medical castration, and particular surgeries, groups of men that are wanting to go through and round up politicians who support and advocate and protect judges who support and advocate and protect for this type of ideology. I pray we don't have to get there, because it's going to be extremely ugly. I know everyone continues to talk about the idea of fomenting civil war, but that I don't believe that a civil war would even pop off anything like 150 years ago, 170 at this point. I think it would be much more surgical. I think it would be much more detailed, like I just explained. And I pray that we never have to see that. I pray it doesn't get that way. I pray that those people repent. I pray that God's Spirit can move through these people and cause them to come back to a sound and rational mind that decides, instead of wanting to destroy the unborn child and destroy the growing immature adolescent child with this ideology, instead they would want to protect them and bring them back to a common sense traditional role of man and woman. I pray that we can root out this cancerous ideology before it escalates even further. What was interesting about Charlie Kirk passing was that everyone knew he was there. A lot of people share his clips online, getting shared around, were really popular. He was known about by a lot of people, but I think what happened yesterday with his passing, it revealed with a lot of people that they actually had a sentiment for him that they may not have realized. Because he wasn't known for inflammatory, he's not known for like being an Alex Jones. He was just known for being a Christian that displayed incredible fruits of the Spirit while trying to have nonviolent and loving discourse with people about these social issues that are corroding our society, and trying to encourage the younger generation back to a stable framework of life so that they can enjoy this life. Because the road of revolution, there's no enjoyment at the end of that road. It's more revolution. It is the most tunnel vision of ideologies. It is not an ideology that has a master plan where people are happy at the end. It's an ideology where the only thing that results of it, and then the only thing it perpetuates, is death and bloodshed. It is a satanic ideology, and Charlie Kirk was just going out there trying to get people back into a good biblical foundation of mindset and ideology. Try to get them, remind them of these basic principles of life: that you are created, that you're loved, that we are expected to do what's right, to defend the innocent, to maintain boundaries, even if that means national boundaries, to maintain medical freedom and autonomy away from tyranny and oppression, to maintain limited government away from governmental oppression and tyranny, overreach. These are common sense ideas, but these are all biblical ideas. And that's what his his platform was. And so people, I think a lot of people are realizing today, as they mourn his loss and they pray for his family, I think they're realizing how in an unspoken way, maybe even to themselves, even they had already endeared themselves to him because he was fighting for what's right, and it was good to see. Let's take a quick look. Let's take a quick look at something.
I think we're at a tipping point moment for this country, and I don't say that lightly. I think what happened today in the assassination of Charlie Kirk is a tipping point moment. I'm going to talk more about that in a second, but I just wanted to come in and say a few words. I've just been thinking about this nonstop since it happened this afternoon. We were, of course, live during our show this afternoon when we knew what happened, but then watching and waiting and hoping and praying that he would make it, and then getting information from the hospital letting us know live on the air that he didn't make it. People that are likely on SSRIs and some sort of medication, mental illness, and they're trans. Can we have that conversation? No, let's just shoot you instead. We don't want to talk about that because that's intolerant. Why was he wearing body armor? Why was Charlie Kirk wearing body armor?
So this is I can't remember this guy's name. He's basically he's the owner, if I should say, the main host of a show called Redacted. It's a political commentary and news show, and they're a conservative news show. And I mainly found him on YouTube and Rumble. It's called Redacted, and I've listened to him for several years. They were greatly against all the COVID tyranny in the past. That's how I found them back in 2020. And he has a lot of good common sense takes. He does. I don't know if Charlie Kirk had body armor on. It's hard to tell. The very thin white t-shirt that he had on the day that he was shot doesn't look to show body armor unless he had some extremely expensive, extremely high-tech military grade, like super thin plates of some sort. Most body armor is pretty obvious to see, especially with Charlie's frame and just having a single t-shirt on it. It wasn't like he had, multiple layers of the coat or anything. So I'm not sure that he had body armor on, but this gentleman thinks he did. This gentleman had spoken with a friend who I guess was former FBI and claimed that he did have body armor and that the bullet ricocheted off that and hit his neck. I don't know. It's hard to say. But it did not look like he was wearing any type of body armor.
And of course, the way that the bullet hits him, you can see it clearly bouncing right off. It was a kill shot aimed right for his heart, to hit his aorta, to hit that entire, as a friend in law enforcement, former FBI told me today, he said it was like a mess of pipes right there. That you don't shoot someone in the head, that's for the movies. You shoot for the heart because any professional would do it that way. So Charlie was wearing body armor. It deflects the bullet up, hits him right in the neck, and kills him. But more importantly, why was there no ambulance or EMT on site?
So that is a question that I agree with. I'm very curious about this. And I'm pretty sure he's going to go over this here in a minute, but he looks and pulls up the laws for Utah for outdoor events. And I believe it's one of their laws for outdoor events is if there's like over 5,000 or 10,000 people, you're supposed to have a medical presence there just in case of emergencies.
In Utah, as in other states, state regulations require gatherings over a certain percentage of people, over a certain number of people. Even cities have different regulations, require an EMT on site and an ambulance. Go to any local carnival in your neighborhood, and you'll see an ambulance parked there, ready in case someone is injured. Why at this event with thousands of people? No ambulance, no medical, nothing. And so when he's shot, how does he get carried away? By 6 individuals grab him and throw him into the back of an SUV. Incredibly difficult to try to administer any kind of care on someone in an SUV. No room to move around, no way to really administer any kind of CPR, try to stop the bleeding, do what they can in the back of an SUV. No ambulance.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. There's several people in the live chat saying that body armor doesn't deflect. I would agree with that as well. I've never known body armor to deflect, specifically with a rifle shot like that. This was not a handgun. It's not a small caliber bullet. It seemed to be a decent caliber rifle shot, and especially to maintain the type of velocity it did from that distance. When you hear the video, all as graphic as it is, the impact of Charlie being struck by the bullet and the sound of the shot is almost instantaneous. And there's his whole body goes through like a shockwave because he's actually being knocked out from being hit, and it seems as if it's hitting him in the neck and possibly his actual bone in the back of his neck, which caused the jolting, which would have caused him to lose consciousness immediately. And a rifle caliber of a bullet of that caliber from a rifle would more than likely create the large entry wound that was seen. So I don't think that it bounced off body armor personally. I even heard another sniper trying to talk about this, saying that it went through the body armor, went through his chest, and actually bounced off the body armor on the back of him, and then ricocheted out of his neck. I don't know if I believe that either. Either way, there's some interesting, regardless of whether this was a purple-haired lunatic in support of the Rainbow Mafia, which is what the FBI is promoting right now. Supposedly, there's leaked documents already showing that the gun and the bullets had, or should maybe the shell casings or whatever had inscribed certain specific terminology like trans Tifa. I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to say. Is it really a disgruntled and angry person, a part of the Rainbow Mafia that was able to learn about weapons enough to do this? Because that's typically not their hobby. They're too worried about protesting and getting on Grindr. You know what I'm saying? They're typically not at the shooting range, thinking they're going to have to defend, their rainbow flag with their little butthole in the middle of that flag or whatever they have. I don't know whatever disgusting flag is made to represent their minor attracted beliefs. They should all be strung up if they're promoting child abuse, in my opinion. But so it's an odd thing because of the level of technical ability you'd have to know to be comfortable with this type of rifle, to be able to use the scope properly at that distance, which means how to zero it out and set it up. And there's just a whole bunch of things that go into this that it's hard for me to believe that people from that crowd and their disposition and their levels of interest and hobby blend into the world of like gun owners and everything involved to make this shot. So that's why I lean more towards a professional, and I'm not putting it past the idea that a professional could then leave behind certain indicators to try to make the law enforcement think it was a member of that community, so that they'll go off the trail. And the reason why I say that is because of what we're going to watch in a minute. As far as they claim to have picked up a guy at the event, this older man, whom the moment they picked him up, he's shouting, "I did it! I shot him!" Just and then he wants the police to shoot him. But yes, we'll talk about that in just a minute.
So likely died on the way to the hospital. Why do we not have this shooter? FBI Director Kash Patel just moments ago posting that those individuals that they rounded up initially and were, shared all over social media. Even the university said that they had captured the shooter, wasn't the shooter at all. Who were these individuals? Who were these people? Eyewitnesses immediately said, this guy didn't do it. He's like a homeless guy. He has no money. We know the guy. He lives in our neighborhood. Like, this guy didn't shoot him. Other individuals rounded up. Why did one person who was rounded up, as you can see here, have a pellet gun in his possession?
Yeah, this was weird. This was weird. Like, why? Yeah, that is weird to me that you round up two people. One immediately starts claiming he did it and asks the cops to shoot him. And then the other person they round up, he's got a pellet gun. Like, what are you doing there? I mean, these look like intentional decoys to give time for the actual shooter to get away, as if it's almost coordinated.
And photos were shared of law enforcement, shared on social media. We got the guy. This is the shooter. This is not the shooter. And why did he have a BB gun? Essentially a pellet gun in his possession. As friend of the show, former FBI agent Kyle Seraphin pointed out, this is a simple pellet gun. But that was shared all over social media. We got the guy. No, he's still at large. He's still at large at this level. So, all that to say, we don't know, who the shooter is. We do know that Charlie had told friends in recent weeks that he feared that Israel was going to kill him. Those are Charlie's words to friends, not mine, because his views on what has been transpiring in Gaza as the genocide has unfolded has evolved.
So here's where the Mossad connection, Israel's involved connection, this is where people start inputting this into the conspiracy. Again, there's no evidence either way of any of this stuff. In a private conversation with one of his friends, did Charlie Kirk actually say, hey, I fear that Israel may come after me because I'm turning on the Gaza narrative or whatever? Possibly. It's possible. That could have been a private conversation. This Harrison guy that was just put on screen who's tweeting about this, who claimed to be a friend of Charlie, he could be accurately reporting that idea. It's possible. But that's just speculation. Even if it's an accurate retelling of this conversation, it's just speculation about Charlie being like, who knows how the political winds will sway if I change my position on this subject. So I don't think that's enough substantiatory evidence to start immediately assuming it's Israel or a Mossad agent that's coming after him. I will say that it is the updated photos of the people that the FBI is looking as a person of interest. This gentleman that was dressed in black with black sunglasses that apparently was ascending the stairs. I don't know if that's intended for him to be, if that was taken somehow. We don't know where that photo came from. We don't know if it was taken from an individual's phone or from some sort of security camera, that he was actually ascending the stairs to try to get to the roof. It didn't look like he had a rifle of any kind, unless it's some sort of high-level compact rifle that he can assemble once he's up there. It didn't look like he had a rifle on his person in the picture that they're releasing to the public, saying he's a person of interest. But I will say it's interesting that he's a person of interest. He definitely does not look like someone in support of the Rainbow Mafia. So again, the FBI is releasing a photo of that guy and simultaneously releasing information saying, oh, we found some things like trans Tifa inscribed on the weapons and the shell casings and things like that. So we're guessing that's a part of the LGBTQ crowd. It's hard for me. It's hard for me because very rarely do like that. The photo that we saw, that person of interest, I know, look, people say, well, looks can be deceiving. Maybe he was just dressing that way because he wanted to look conservative and he wanted to evade suspicion. Maybe under his ball cap was purple hair. Who knows? But it's just interesting that he just definitely doesn't look the part of that crowd, to be so strongly a part of that crowd that he's willing to go through these lengths to assassinate somebody.
Significantly from where he was months ago, apparently, according to friends that knew him well. So why was he wearing body armor? I mean, I guess just sort of any protection in an event like this would make sense, right? but he was telling friends that he actively thought he was going to be killed. Something to consider. We don't know more than that on that piece of it yet, as the story still evolves. So beyond all of those questions that are still outstanding for me, and excuse the wind here, I've been outside all day after this and just talking to friends and close friends of Charlie and just taking the dog for a walk in the woods, because even my son came home from school today. He's 15 and he was gutted about it. My young daughters knew all about this, because for my son, who has a bunch of conservative young men, 14, 15, 16-year-olds who are close with him, they looked up to Charlie Kirk. They would share videos of him speaking on campuses. They looked up to him. They would, in fact, my son talked about him as a man, like he was he's 31 years old. It was a strong figure for young men. Be a good father, work hard, be a good Christian.
Well, I thought was fascinating about Charlie Kirk, listening to him, what little I did, was that he actually told kids at college, you don't need college. That was wild to me. But he would actually tell them at college, yeah, you don't need to be here. You can do anything. You can make plenty of money. You can go into a trade. You don't need college. College is a failing system. It puts kids in debt and doesn't provide them with skills to create the life that they're promised or they think that they're going to receive from that college education. And it's become a scam in our modern day. And I agree with that. I actually agree with that. Like when you look at the statistics that's why it's become a common trope, a common joke for college graduates to be like, oh yeah, I got this degree but now I can't get a job. Well, no one cares about your women's studies degree. That doesn't help you in the real world. So that is interesting. Also, I just want to say that someone in the live chat, Justin's mentioning that this is true. Apparently, his wife and 2 children were at the event, and that just that just breaks my heart. A lot of people are saying like this is a staged and planned event. Well, of course it is. Of course it is. Whoever decided to kill him had to plan it. The event was staged because it was a part of Turning Point USA doing their tour around the country. So they knew where they were going to be next. And so did the people that wanted to shoot him. They knew where he was going to be next. So all of it was planned on both sides of the bullet. All of it was planned. It was all staged. Not that Charlie is alive still, not that it's a fake assassination. He genuinely lost his life. Hundreds of eyewitnesses attest to it with individual videos, even from very different angles. This is not a plan. This is not AI. This is not a planned event. His wife and children were at the event. They're mourning today. In fact, there's a football player for the Minnesota Vikings, apparently, that heard about this and has already pledged to completely pay all of their expenses and even their children's education. I can't remember his name. I think his name was, anyway, you guys can probably find it easily if you search it. But yeah, as an NFL football player, heard about this and already pledged to take care of his whole family. That's amazing. That is amazing. How does this NFL football player know about Charlie Kirk? Man, it's amazing. So also something, we'll come back to this video. We're at the 8-minute marker. Come back to this video in just a minute. I want to look at something. Give me 1 second here. This I thought was wild. I don't understand this aspect of whatever is still unfolding. Give me just 1 minute. So there's a brother online that posted this earlier. Let me pull this up for us. I don't know. Yeah, Justin Jefferson. Thank you, RA. I appreciate that. Yeah, Justin Jefferson was his name. I think he's for the Minnesota Vikings. I don't follow football anymore. It's been so long. I've been so busy with other things. I can't keep up. But thank you, brother. So check this out. This is strange. Very strange to me. So this is, if you go on Amazon and you look up the shooting of Charlie Kirk, there's a book's already being published about this. And wildly enough, these books are, that's not it. These books are, this one was published today. This one was published yesterday, or no, this one was published yesterday, and this one was published today, I believe. But then this one was published on the 9th, the day before. And that's just weird. Maybe it's just a glitch. Maybe it's just a glitch within Amazon. Because even in the title description, it says on September 10th, the campus of Utah Valley was forever changed. Now, guys, this could just be people trolling. I doubt there's any substance to this book. I think this is a person trying to get $7 to sell something. They put up you can make this within the hour. You can make this book cover, and then publish the book. And possibly it's a glitch in what they're showing as far as the publication date. But this is just really weird because I've published a book on Amazon. We have books on Amazon. And I'm pretty sure the approval process, once you upload it through the back-end dashboard, it takes more than a day, if not a full day. So it's just really weird. I don't know how to explain this. That this person, and then when you click on it, that's when you see this image. When I actually clicked on it, that's when you see, oh, something went wrong. Can't see it anymore. Whereas you could see it previously. So clearly people are grifting. There's other people trying to sell QuickBooks to try to grift off of this because it's, it's everywhere right now in the media and the news. But it breaks my heart that people try to make money off this instantly. And yeah, I definitely understand that people can use AI to create books real quick. But the approval process is the part that's interesting because I'm pretty sure it takes, unless it's actually Amazon, unless in-house within Amazon itself, there's an AI system that can just publish a book without the normal waiting period for a normal author. Then that's amazing. Because I get it that book should be published as of late yesterday and today because it's going through the approval process, but to claim it was published on the 9th, talking about stuff that would be happening the next day, that's weird. So clearly, whoever planned to assassinate Charlie Kirk was planning ahead. They knew where he was going to be in Utah. They were planning ahead for this. Was it a disgruntled member of the Rainbow Mafia that just followed into that event and trained enough in firearms to be able to do this? Or was it more of a governmental effort from somebody, or is it some in between? Is it someone through a group of people through the Rainbow Mafia that actually have some sort of resources and they hired a professional hitman? They spent $50K on the dark web and tried to find someone that would do their bidding for them. It's possible. We don't know. There's still an ongoing investigation with everything that happened. We don't know everything right now. Ultimately, though, what we do know is a man died that shouldn't have died, lost his life for trying to have rational, loving discourse with people that he disagrees with. And the other side decided that they don't even want to talk anymore, that they just want to shoot. The fact that the shooter, and this happened specifically when someone started asking about violence from the trans community, with the recent shootings from different trans people that we've seen over the past 2 or 3 years, that's when the shot rang out, is highly suspect. See if I can find this other video. I don't know if I downloaded it. Give me 1 second. Let me see if I can find this. I can't find it right now, but there's other viral videos that you guys have probably already seen being passed around where as soon as the shots ring out, there's a long-haired guy that stands up and turns around and looks in the direction of the shooter and starts cheering. He starts visibly going, yay, yay. Many of you guys may have already seen that going around. There were people actually cheering. And then testimony from people at the event who were hunkering down and getting down to the ground after the shot rang out. They then are testifying that they heard another group just close to them cheering for Charlie's passing. Yeah, it's wild, guys. I know there's a lot of people immediately want to talk about conspiracy theories as far as the video camera is not picking up some of the lettering on his shirt when his body jolted really quickly. That's just a glitch that happens when things happen quickly with cameras. Happens all the time. You can go into other frames and see the full lettering on his shirt return. It doesn't have a magical shirt. There's no video splicing or editing. It's just simply when things move quickly because his body just got rocked with impact enough to knock him out instantly. That things happen quickly. I don't even move that fast on my broadcasts, and sometimes we have bad video quality that happens and things get blurred out and things get sketchy. It's just video technology. Other people are asking about the ring on his finger. They're really, really concerned about the ring on his finger. And big shout out to one of our friends, Summer. She found this video of him, whether it's at this event, I think it's at another event because he has a different colored shirt on, but he is playing with this ring. It's the same ring that he always plays with and that he has. And this ring apparently it's like a special type of ring that detaches. And so he fidgets with it. Like some people get real fidgety because they have subconscious anxiety as they're dealing with the public and all the challenging questions that are being brought to them. And so he fidgets with his fingers, taking this ring off and on each finger. And you can see him doing that here. As you can see, the actual ring unlocks. He looks down at it. He's tinkering with it in his lap as he's talking to the whomever at a different event. Like, this is apparently some type of ring that he's had for a while. And so people are all like, oh man, when he got shot, how did this thing move down to his left or down to his pinky finger from his ring finger? I think if it comes apart that easily, because he's been playing with it for a long time, opening it and closing it, opening and closing it, that the moment that he gets shot, it's literally falling off his ring finger and falling down over his pinky finger, if it was even properly secured before he got shot. So that's why when he gets shot and his whole body jolts and he starts to fall over, the ring looks as if it's moved down to his pinky finger at that point. But basically it could just be that it wasn't fully clasped to begin with, or that the clasp was weak after playing with it so much. Either way, the point is, it's not a different video. It's just simply this ring is something he fidgeted with all the time, and it comes apart. So the thing that I hope that we don't see happening is the constant conspiracies of just, oh, this is fake, he's alive somewhere, and all that. Guys, show some respect to his surviving family. I remember a few years ago, people did this with Rob Skiba's passing, and just the most disrespectful, ugly behavior of just suspecting. No, because yeah, there's people that want to control the world, and some events could be orchestrated. Doesn't mean that innocent people are killed. This is what I try to open up sharing with you about in the scriptures. The righteous are persecuted, guys. The righteous are persecuted. That's not fakery. The righteous are not faking their persecution. The Bible tells you persecution happens to the righteous. Some may even lose their life, as we see with examples of prophets in the past. Christ himself, the person who didn't deserve it least on this entire earth, the Son of God, Yeshua of Nazareth, the Messiah, he was persecuted unto death publicly ashamed, stripped naked, put on a cross, and raised up in the sight of many peoples till he bled out. Well, I know he gave his own breath out, but the point was, for the execution of the cross is wait till they bleed out, wait till they die, or to succumb to the weight of their own body on the way they're strung up as they were, creating a type of asphyxiation for themselves. It was supposed to be embarrassing. It was supposed to be a ritual humiliation inside of all the people. And that happened to the greatest man that ever walked the earth. Thank you, Father, for the promises of your covenant that brought him resurrection. And now he has eternal life and is ascended to heaven as our high priest. But still, he walked the earth in righteousness, and he was persecuted for that. And he tries to tell us that if they go after the master, they will go after the servants. And Charlie Kirk was a disciple of Jesus Christ. He unabashedly preached Jesus Christ everywhere he went. He lived a life that represented and honored Jesus Christ. And he promoted biblical ideas just like Jesus Christ did. So this is, I pray that we can get through, and the community that listens to me. Yes, we talk about conspiracies, whether local or worldwide, it's from time to time. It doesn't look like this is one of them. This man lost his life. His wife, his children are grieving. And it was a public execution intended to send a message to people. They want to tell these people, like Charlie, and everyone out there listening that agrees with the principles that Charlie argued for, they want to shut you up. They want to scare you into silence. They do not want you to defend your righteousness. They do not want you to put your light upon that hill. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. They do not want you to shine your light so that other people can see your good works and glorify God in heaven. They want you to be cowering and scared into submission to their insane, self-destructive ideology. The enemy always wants to intimidate. It cannot argue truth because it's not truthful or logical. It can only intimidate you into shutting up and submission. So I'm not going to be like that. I'm not going to let something like this shut me up, cause us to stop doing what we do, because we speak, avow, and promote and teach all the same things Charlie did. I'm not going to let this stop me one bit. And I pray everyone listening out there, it doesn't let it stop you too. In fact, I hope it only emboldens you further to realize that we are in a fight, just in case you forgot, just in case your daily life is taking you down a path of forgetfulness to where you think that evil's not truly as evil as it possibly is. It's sick. It's super evil. And it wants to scare believers into being quiet. But I pray that everyone listening would take the opposite path. And I pray that it would cause you to be more vocal, more bold for the gospel, more bold to remind people of what's true, to encourage them back to the commandments of God, which is the stability of our nation. Anything outside of that results in your enemies invading you, just as God promised in Leviticus 26.
I think we're at a tipping point moment for this country, and I don't say that. He was he's 31 years old. He was a strong figure for young men. Be a good father. Work hard. Be a good Christian. All of those things. Take personal responsibility. Have a strong work ethic. Take care of the women in your lives. And so that message, in the same way that my son, looks up to somebody like David Goggins, his friends, like, they want to be men. And they silenced an important voice in that movement for young men. So it makes sense. A very strong voice for young men. Young men who have they have had their masculinity really stripped away over the past decade under these liberal policies, under this, liberal academia, that you're not allowed to be a man. You're not allowed to be a man. And so a voice in that movement has been silenced, and I'm just gutted about it. I am really gutted about it. I just sit and think about. So all that to say, I've just been outside today, just nonstop, just to be outside walking the dog and trying to get my thoughts together.
It's so weird because I felt the same way yesterday. I tried to work yesterday afternoon after the news of all this broke, and I just ended up telling my wife I'm gonna try to go clean out the garage, and then asked her soon after. I was like, "Hey, just want to go for a walk? I just want to get outside and get some fresh air." It just felt heavy, felt weird being inside. I just want to get outside. It was a weird feeling. And look, I'm not even a big Charlie fan. Like, I didn't watch him all the time. I didn't ever plan to attend one of his events. But I think the gruesome public execution of a man who stood for what's right, and he did so with confidence, he did so with love. Man, it hit me hard. It affected me. I didn't expect it to.
On all of this, this obviously really hits me hard, but I'm sure it hits many of you equally hard. But I'm just struck by the strange arrests, the weird decoys at this event. Why a guy with a pellet gun? Why pretending like we caught this guy? Now we know that we don't have the shooter. Why all of that? But at the heart of it, for me, I believe we are at a tipping point moment for the United States. For far too long, conservative men, independent men, have been too tolerant, and they've been sitting back and they've been allowing this violence to go on. They've been sitting back saying, "Oh, there's the radical leftists again, carrying out another mass shooting. There's another leftist, who's been arrested 14 times, slashing a white girl on a train. We're outraged about it." But this feels different. And speaking to a lot of my conservative friends in positions of authority, they're feeling the same. And I think we're going to see a revolution in this country. I really believe that, unless something changes.
Now, this gentleman is not talking about a communist revolution. He's talking about a democratic constitutional republic revolution. That's his mentality, his thought process. But in order to do that, like I said, it's going to have to be surgical. It's not going to be, unless the Father drops his spirit in a road to Damascus style, Acts chapter 9, blinds Paul for 3 days type of way, unless you have a miraculous concept like that happening, the Father's going to have to drop his spirit on these people and wake them up from their blindness, because they're already blinded by this bad ideology, and miraculously, because this is not a small amount of people anymore, guys. This indoctrination has been taking place for 15 plus years. They're trying to capture a generation. So then when that generation now is older, they'll become politicians, mayors, governors, all that kind of stuff. They're trying to push into an ideology, a generation, to foment future revolution in a communist way. In order to root that out, you're going to have to talk a surgical dismantling of the places of power that they've found that they're creeping into, like an ivy that just won't stop growing. Unless we get a supernatural concept from God that causes mass repentance, and we have another great awakening in this country, like in centuries past. But if the Father leaves it up to us to clean house, it's going to have to be anyone promoting or advocating for this in Congress or the House or any form of government, local, state, or federal. You're instantly removed. I'm not saying we would even put them in jail. You're just instantly removed from your place of office based off of your irrational, like you have, what is it, the 25th Amendment that they can claim for the President of the United States to say that he's mentally incapable, he's no longer in his right faculties to hold office. We take that and we apply it to all these people in office throughout every state, local municipalities, state house governments, congresses, and then federal. And we'll remove them all, which would be wild, which would mean someone has to stand up in each of those places and do this. The same people that did not stand up and let this infiltrate over the past 15 years would then have to suddenly get the courage to stand up and say, you're pushing an ideology that is causing self-harm, that is causing public harm, that is causing national harm, that is destroying the fabric of our people and our cohesive society. You cannot have a position of authority, leadership, or power any longer. And you must be removed. We'd also have to go into the medical institutions. Any doctor that is going to chemically castrate, that is going to physically castrate, that is going to perform these surgeries, immediately their licenses are taken away. You're going to have to go into the schools, to all these trans teachers that have been hired that are trying to promote this stuff to first and second graders. Immediately they can never work in the schools again. They can never be a teacher. They can never work at a daycare. They can never, like, they're sadly, they would have to be almost treated. They can go work somewhere else. They'll figure it out. They'll dye their hair back normal and go work somewhere else. Or they'll just go to other jobs that allow that already hire that group of people and don't seem to care. But get them out of the positions of influencing the society. All these college professors that have been institutionalizing themselves with communist ideology in these college campuses, they've got to be they would have to be removed, which means you're going to have a whole new board of regents, you have a whole new board of directors at these colleges. Some of the colleges probably would just end up shutting down because apparently the parents themselves can't seem to know what's going on. They're not educated enough to see the signs of this happening in the culture to say, I'm not going to send my child to that school because it's just a communist madrasa that's going to indoctrinate them into an ideology that's going to alienate them from their own family and cause them to be a revolutionary against all the societal norms in this country that has allowed us to be prosperous in a cohesive melting pot of different peoples. The parents are not being educated enough to even notice that type of stuff. And they're just sending their children off to these universities and bragging about it later on social media. Oh yeah, my son is going here and there. It's amazing. It's their first year, or it's their senior year, or whatever. But meanwhile, they're being indoctrinated to hate you. They're being indoctrinated to hate this country. They're being indoctrinated in a communist revolution. It would have to be a surgical removal of all these things, an ideological litmus test, if you will. You know, I mean, it's one thing to say free speech, but with private institutions, I'm pretty sure you have the right to hire who you want to hire. And I mean, think about it to the inverse, right? You already have tons of stories about Christians being let go from certain institutions and medical practices and because of their beliefs. So if they have the ability to create that type of litmus test, if you will, against Christians, what if there was a litmus test that said, hey, I actually don't want people with this communist ideology to exist in these positions of power in the medical field, in the educational society, and governmental structures, in the police force, any of this stuff. I don't want these people being district attorneys. We're going to pass a litmus test. I mean, dear Lord, you know, the moments like this will radicalize people to say, you know what? Maybe McCarthy wasn't really wrong. maybe that was the communists' slant on what happened in the 50s after the fact, because now they controlled the media and they're retelling the history to say that McCarthy was some horrible person, when really maybe he was just trying to root the communists out of society because he knew what they caused. We're seeing the fruit of that. It's a demonic ideology.
Unless we have law enforcement that's willing to go after and lock these people up. When somebody goes online and makes a threat against somebody like Charlie Kirk, or otherwise, or Tucker Carlson, or myself, or it doesn't really matter who. Why are those people not being investigated or arrested and put behind bars? The threat of violence against some other human being in America, there should be no place for this. And yet we've allowed it. And these, Facebooks and social media platforms with this type of rhetoric and violence, I'm not calling for censorship. But I'm calling, when someone makes a threat of violence against another individual, that person has a knock at the door and is likely arrested, brought to justice, and made an example of in front of other leftists who are fine to be out there criticizing and calling for violence against somebody else. It needs to stop. But for far too long, the right will just sort of shake their head like, look at these crazy liberals with their blue hair, and they're punching police officers, and they're setting businesses on fire, and look what they're doing to Portland, and they're burning down these buildings, and Antifa is attacking, attacking Tucker Carlson at his house, or going after his home and his family in Washington, D.C. Oh, isn't that funny? Going after judges, going after Supreme Court judges. Like, this is enough. This is enough. This is a tipping point moment in the United States. I don't think, I think you're witnessing now the end of this tolerance. You're witnessing the end of men just sort of sitting back, allowing this to happen. I think we've had it, and I'm really worried about what comes next. But I will say this, it feels like...
Yeah, there's a tweet being passed around social media. I can't remember who said it, but he basically said Charlie Kirk was the nice guy that wanted to have a peaceful conversation with you, but you shot and killed him. So you don't want the guy that comes next. Because it's not going to be peaceful people after this. And that's the part where I'm advocating for peace. I know there's a lot of men in my audience. We are 73% men that view my channel. And we have a biblical duty to defend our people, to defend our family, to defend our communities, but do not instigate. If you want to get involved with local law enforcement to do something and coordinate as a part of your local community watch or militia, but I just highly discourage vigilante actions. I highly discourage that we continue to walk in the love of God. Remember the precedent we see all throughout Scripture. Remember what was it 1 Corinthians 11, where it talks about the examples from the Old Testament, from the law and the prophets, is for our edification, it's for our study, it's for us to learn from. So let's think about, what do we see in the days of the kings? 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, 1st and 2nd Kings. We see even in the days of Joshua, you see that righteous military men of Israel consulted with Yahweh, even when they knew they could take out this city, even when they knew that city was wicked and evil and their judgment was upon them, they still consulted with Yahweh with temperance, and that's what made them righteous. When King Saul in 2 Samuel decided he wasn't going to consult, he was just going to go up and try to attack these people, and they got their backsides handed to them, Yahweh wasn't with them. So I know there's a lot of men in my audience that probably are extremely capable, and clearly we've done, we've talked about self-defense as a biblical concept, and you should defend yourself, your family, your community. But we should not be instigators. We should not foment revolutions that upend existing righteous structures of government. We should remember that we're in dispersion as believers. We are not living in a theocratic, autonomous government. We are to pray for the welfare of the nations to which believers are in exile. This is a precedent by Yahweh. He instructed of the Israelites going into exile. And the precedent we see of the kings when they were going to handle business with the sword and to take out a parasitic infestation that was trying to sway their people away into worshiping a false god, which means into all this horrific acts of child sacrifice, illicit sexual behavior, the very things that we're dealing with today. They still did so with temperance, waiting on God to say go. So I just want to encourage folks to stay grounded in your walk with Christ. How we love God as we love him through the commandments, and we love others. Sometimes there is a time for war, and there's also a time for restraint. And I know right now after this, because it does hit differently, there is a lot of people on here that are greatly affected more than any other, sadly, more than the Ukrainian refugee from a couple of days ago being stabbed on the bus, more than the Catholic school, I think it was in Florida, that got shut up recently, more than the school in Tennessee last year that got shut up by the trans person. For whatever reason, this particular assassination of Charlie Kirk hits people a lot differently. And I just want to encourage men to maintain your composure, maintain your peace. If you are a part in the next year or two, as this continues to unfold, and if you find yourself a part of a community where some of these things have to be rooted out, and force is involved, I highly suggest coordinating with local law enforcement, do it through the proper channels. And that's all I'll say about that.
Like you've made your own bed. It feels like these people have made their own bed, and they had better be ready to lie in it, because I think that that's what's coming. I hope not. I hope that there is maybe a mass change in these cities. Maybe these liberal cities where they've allowed people to wander free. They make.
I do say you got to be more on guard if you're in a larger city, but also I want to address something. We have a lot of love for Zach over at American Homestead and New to Torah. I've met him a few times, spoken with him several times. I think he's great. I watch his content. I've been in his home. I've sat and ate dinner with him. But I think I do disagree with the general sentiment that we should just hole up, that we should find a homestead and hole up and disengage from this, because it's chaotic and dangerous. If that's where you feel God has called you, okay. But I don't see that precedent in Scripture. I see that we are supposed to affect the culture. We're supposed to go and make disciples of the nations. Not that we should grab our own salvation and then go, isolate ourselves from others, but that we're supposed to be able to still go into the nations and still preach the word of the kingdom and resurrected Christ. This is the example we see from all the disciples, including Paul in the New Testament. They're going into Lystra. They're going into Athens. They're going into Ephesus, these hotspots that were full of people that were child abusers, they're murderers, they're worshiping false gods and doing human sacrifice and engaging in illicit sexual behavior, including transgender behaviors. What's her name? Sybil, I believe is her name. The god of Anatolia, ancient Turkey. What was modern day Turkey today, but that in ancient Anatolia, one of the greatest female transgender gods of that region. Also, her equivalent in Babylon would be Ishtar. This was an extremely popular god in the ancient world, and she had a cult following, and they did rituals pertaining to that cult that were transgender rituals, dressing as the opposite sex and sometimes castrating. So this has been around for a long time, guys. This isn't some new sickness. This is just the new version of an ancient sickness, an ancient demonic infestation in the hearts and minds of people. I feel like we're called as Christians that we should engage in the culture, not run from it. And we see this example not only with our Messiah, but also his apostles.
They make threats against people and they're just no punishment whatsoever. I hope that changes, but I don't think it's going to. And I'm really concerned about what happens next. And I don't say that lightly. But if what I'm hearing from my friends and what I'm seeing online over the past 7-8 hours is any indication of what's coming, we are at a tipping point moment for the United States, and I'm really concerned about it. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. But I'm just gutted for Charlie's family, and I'm just praying for his little boy. Just absolutely crushes me. It absolutely tears me up inside. His little girl and his wife. I lost a friend a few years ago. One of my college friends. I was actually on the air at Fox and Friends that morning, or it was like the night before, and I learned that my good friend from college, he was a brain surgeon, for crying out loud, and he died of a brain tumor. He had two little boys, and I couldn't stop crying. It just tore me up so much. And I, sent a message to his family on Fox and Friends, just, saying I'm just so torn up about this. And I couldn't even control myself. I just was crying so much just to think over like these little boys being, raised not having their father around. And it just tore me up inside, thinking about my little boy and, being able to go out and play baseball in the backyard with him. And so they took a lot. They took a lot from this family. And, I hope these scumbags rot in hell. And you know what? Utah has a firing squad, has a death penalty. And I hope we make an example out of this son of a bitch. Because there's a reckoning coming. There's a reckoning.
I know historically, whenever there's a mass cleansing of a nation, it's not always pretty. I'm praying that God can make this as surgical and as with little bloodshed as possible. But what we've seen in the last 10 years with this ideology is that it's insulating itself with the verbiage of, if you disagree with us, you're aggressing upon my life. For whatever the seduction of this ideology is, that it's taken people who have a specific opinion on how they want to live their life, and they've completely jumped a step in their logic, because it is illogical anyway. But they've jumped a step in their logic to say that if someone disagrees with them, then that person is aggressing violently upon their life just with their words of disagreement. We see this in Scripture. The same, the same false gods that are worshipped in Scripture. We see this same concept. I'll go there real quick. It's in the book of Acts. Give me 1 second. I'll pull this up for us. So here in Acts 19, starting in verse 21. Give me 1 second. So it says, after these things had happened, Paul resolved in the spirit to go to Jerusalem, passing through Macedonia and Achaia. After I'd been there, he said, I must see Rome as well. He sent 2 of his helpers, Timothy and Erastus, of Macedonia, where he stayed for time in the province of Asia. That's modern-day Turkey or ancient Anatolia. This is where the 7 churches are being spoken to in 2 Peter and Revelation. And then he says, about that time there arose a great disturbance about the way. So that's what Paul is preaching, right? It began with a silversmith named Demetrius, who made silver shrines of Artemis, bringing much business to the craftsmen. So here is an idol maker who's upset about Paul preaching about Christ and following the commandments of God. Demetrius assembled the craftsmen along with the workmen in related trades. Men, he said, you know that this business is our source of prosperity, and you can see and hear that not only in Ephesus, but in nearly the whole province of Asia, this Paul has persuaded a great number of people to turn away. He says that men made gods or no gods at all. There is danger not only that our business will fall into disrepute, but also that the temple of the great god Artemis will be discredited and her majesty deposed. She who is worshipped by all the province of Asia and the whole world. So here's the businessmen related to false god worship, acknowledging that Paul is having a very influential effect and it's going to cost them money. And this, in my opinion, is why the patsies of this ideology that we're seeing today, they go out and they hire protesters. This is why there's certain big money players that profit off these ideas, that profit off of the discord. They profit off of causing instability in the nation on the back end. That's a whole financial show I don't have time to go into, on how they devalue the dollar and how they create instability. And the medical industry is making billions of dollars off of the trans agenda. There's lots of money within related trades, just like we read about within related trades, that is profiting off of this, and it's incentivizing them to continue to teach this to new generations and to embolden and promote and fund these revolutionary political activists in our modern day that we're seeing, not just in college campuses, but in the streets and the halls of Congress and other places. There's money behind this, guys. This is not just a passion for a specific people group that is just, oh, they're so worried about this little person being marginalized because he has different views and wants to be a woman when he was really a man. And they feel so sympathetic towards him. That's the stuff that's promoted to the media, but that's not the driving force of this. Ultimately, it's a spiritual demonic force that drives all this. But when it comes to the concept of how does it actually continue to get funded, there's men behind this that fund it for unrighteous gain. They want money off this, and they are making money off this. In the same way, it's always been the same way, guys. False god worship always is a lucrative business for those who facilitate the worship of false gods. So when the men heard this, they were enraged and began shouting, "Great is Artemis of the Ephesians." Soon the whole city was in disarray. They rushed together in the theater, dragging with them Gaius and Aristarchus, Paul's traveling companions from Macedonia. Paul wanted to go before the assembly, but the disciples would not allow him. Even some of Paul's friends, who were officials of the province of Asia, sent word to him, begging him not to venture into the theater. So I want to bring this up because here we are talking about a cultural shift, a quote unquote turning point. All no pun intended, but this is what keeps being thrown around after the reaction to Charlie Kirk's assassination yesterday. Is that, as you saw this gentleman talking about, people are tired of being tolerant. We're at a turning point in this nation. This infestation needs to be removed. It's only going to create more violence if it's not dealt with. And the average person is being radicalized by these events to remove this out of the city. Good men, Christian men who want to stand for righteous values, are wanting to remove this from our nation. Here's Paul wanting to address, a good, righteous man, wanting to address the issue with the people. But the disciples in that area are afraid for Paul's life. They don't want him to get involved. They want him to not go into the theater where they're discussing this issue with men whom are claiming the goddess Athena is being defamed, and all the ideology that goes along with Athena. Meanwhile, the assembly was in turmoil. Some were shouting one thing and some another, and most of them did not even know why they were there. The Jews in the crowd pushed out. I mean, this is called a shouting riot on a college campus. It's turmoil. Some of them don't even know why they're there. They just showed up and realized, oh, there's a whole bunch of people shouting around me, but let's stay. This is exciting. The mob mentality has always been the same, guys. Hang on a second. Didn't mean to hit that button. So the Jews pushed the crowd. The Jews in the crowd pushed Alexander forward to explain himself, and he motioned for silence so he could make his defense to the people. Now, here's something else, right? The people of Israel who are not abiding in the way, they've rejected Christ. They claim to be of Israel, but Paul explains to us in Romans 9 and 10 that they're really not. Not everyone who claims to be of Israel is actually of Israel, because they've abandoned the God of Israel and the prophets that were sent by the God of Israel. So in this context, they're just referred to as the Jews in that area because they're not in contention with the idol makers of that area. They should be, but they're not. The Jews in that area, they're not the ones that are the target of contention from the idol makers. The idol makers are cool with the Jews in that area, and the Jews in that area of the synagogues who have rejected Christ are cool with the idol makers of Athena. But Paul and the actual believers of Christ, who are actually following the way of God, which is the law and the commandments of God, they're the ones stirring up contention, both among the men of Ephesus, and the Jewish people that live there as well. So they pushed Alexander forward to explain himself, and he motioned for silence so he could make his defense to the people. But when they realized that he was a Jew, they all shouted in unison about 2 hours, "Great is Artemis of the Ephesians." Finally, the city clerk quieted the crowd and declared, "Men of Ephesus, doesn't everyone know that the city of Ephesus is guardian of the temple of the great Artemis and of her image, which fell from heaven? Since these things are undeniable, you ought to be calm and not do anything rash, for you have brought these men here, though they have neither robbed our temple nor blasphemed our goddess." So it's interesting that the city clerk, which seems to amount to some sort of judge, is actually calling for rationality here. But the people, the average people, are stirred up in a frenzy because they feel like their money is at risk. They feel like Paul and his other brethren are dipping into their pockets. So verse 38, Demetrius and fellow craftsmen have a complaint against anyone. The courts are open and proconsuls are available. Let them bring charges against one another there. But if you're seeking anything beyond this, it must be settled in a legal assembly. For we're in jeopardy of being charged with rioting for today's event, so we have no justification to account for this commotion. After he had said this, he dismissed the assembly. So the point of what I'm trying to share with you guys is this atmosphere of men who are stirring up the people because they're afraid of their money being lost creates riots, wants to persecute believers. They're okay with the rabbinic aspects of Judaism that deny Christ. He is the turning point. He's the ideological, the philosophical, the theological turning point in all this. Christ preached the commandments, told us to keep the commandments as his disciples. The disciples of Christ, Paul, Aristarchus, and these other gentlemen go out, Gaius, and they're preaching in Ephesus the gospel of the kingdom, which includes the commandments of God, the preaching the resurrected Christ, which includes obedience to him, which is the commandments of God. And all of these are a stench in the nostrils of the industry, of the money-making industry of false idol worship. And they're willing to kill to maintain their pockets. And guys, in the modern day, I feel like this is what we witnessed yesterday with Charlie Kirk. Hey, Josh. Josh from FUB is here. So, we've said a lot here. Hopefully, hopefully my concerns and my encouragements have been heard today. I'm not one to run rashly into the streets. I don't feel like that is our proper disposition as believers in Christ. I'm not one that's suggesting fear mongering internally amongst fellow believers. I think that we are to expect persecution. We're told to by our Messiah. Let us not forget that just because we live in the United States and we often don't face it. Just in the same way we're to remember all of his other words, we are to remember him telling us that we must anticipate or expect persecution. And he even tells us what to do when it happens. Matthew 5:12, bless those who persecute you. You guys ever see me in a social media thread or in a YouTube thread and I'm talking to Trinitarians or I'm talking to Calvinists or I'm talking to Catholics and then they start attacking me and you see me just say, all right, may God bless you. Start seeing me in a thread, somebody starts mocking me, I do my best to just try not to respond with evil for evil. I'm going to bless you. I'm trying to maintain a righteous disposition as Christ instructs us because we're his disciples. Okay. I expected this. If I'm going to be speaking the truth according to the commandments of God, according to the wisdom of God, then I expect levels of persecution. There's levels to this thing. Some are minor. Others are a little more intense. Some are deep hurts. Some are tragic, like we witnessed with Charlie Kirk. But we are to expect persecution. Righteous men of the past did. Our very Messiah did. The creator of heaven and earth himself is slandered by puny men. And he, more times than not, he lets it go. And that's hard for me because we get slandered so much, guys. We get slandered like all the time, all the time. No one can seem to ever represent what we say. It's hilarious. No, but just pick a topic. Just pick any topic we talk about. Nobody can seem to just calm down and just accurately steel man and represent what we say because they're so heavily invested in their pet doctrine of whatever it is. We get slandered all the time. Heretics from every angle. And then once they finally if I have the time to engage with them to, at length to finally get them to hear, just slow down and listen to what I'm actually saying. And then they're like, oh, okay. So you do. Oh, okay. But sometimes they still disagree and they just, they're still do not want to misrepresent. They do not want to represent us properly because it might cause them to rethink their own position. So we get slandered all the time. It's just been something I've had to learn to live with and ask God a lot for patience to deal with because I realized a long time ago that he gets slandered all the time and he deals with it much more gracefully than I do. So I need to be more like him. I need to imitate my Heavenly Father. Christ was slandered all the time. It tells you in John chapter 7, they looked for a way to kill him. And then they also misrepresented what he taught. They assumed ill of him. They assumed all manner of evil of him. And he was a righteous man. This is what we're dealing with in this life. So I don't encourage us holding up. I do encourage us engaging with the culture. I don't encourage us creating a commune amongst other fellow believers who want to keep the commandments. I encourage us to get out there and affect the culture as much as we can. Am I telling you have to stay in the south side of Chicago if that's where you live? No. I mean, if you want to move to a smaller city where there's less violence and danger, that's fine. But I'm just saying, I don't think we're not told in Scripture that we need to just go live out away from everybody and try to create a new Amish style community. We need to engage with the culture. That's how things change. That's how we shine the light in the darkness and it overcomes the darkness. It's a unique balancing act as a believer to be able to anticipate persecution for doing and speaking what's right, but at the same time, continue to maintain the disposition of love to those who hate you and continue to want to engage with them to continue to show them love. It's a unique disposition. It takes a lot of practice, but we've got some really awesome examples in Scripture of how to do that. Guys, pray for Charlie Kirk's family. Pray for Charlie Kirk's family. That's all I'm going to say, I guess. Just keep them, if you can think of it today, to actively pray for them. I don't know if they've set up any type of support, places of support. I doubt they'd need it personally. I'm pretty sure he probably had life insurance. But even if he didn't, the success of TP USA and everything involved, I'm pretty sure they were probably not hurting, but it's just still, it's not like a national disaster where you're going to see public donation places, right? So like it feels like a national sadness, but it's not. I don't think they're going to put up any fundraisers for their family or anything like that. But just pray for them. Ask God to move on those children. Possibly remove from those children what they saw that day, because according to testimony, they were there. They were in attendance watching. So may God remove from that family. Pray for them, guys.